Hi everyone, I'm Ian, and I'm a mathematician at the Australian National University. So you're probably looking at me and thinking, this guy's still in school. Those days are over, but here's a true story. The first class I taught at ANU, I walked into the classroom and some of the students started wondering why another student had just decided to go up to the board and start lecturing. So when I meet someone new and I tell them that I'm a mathematician, well, they might humor me and say something like, "That's so interesting." But their body language tells me that they like to get out of this conversation as soon as possible. And I know this because I'm an expert in curvature. I'm attuned enough to the curvature of your body as you're leaning away from me in conversation to work out what grades you got in your last math class. So this person would have gotten a B. This person, an F. So in 2025, when I say I'm fascinated by curved bodies, that sets off some alarm bells in HR. Now, you don't need to worry, because actually, I'm gay. So I'm curved in a whole nother way. That's good enough to get HR off my back. So I'm here to tell you about curvature in geometry. I do foundational research. People always ask me about the applications, which is understandable. You're looking for something to hold on to. The problem is, describing the applications will give you the wrong impression about what it is I actually do. That's because pure mathematics is the opposite of applications. We look at a bunch of concrete situations, look at what they have in common, and abstract them. And then we take a bunch of abstractions, look at what they have in common, and abstract them. It's just turtles all the way down. It's the world turtle from Hindu mythology. Now, you also get to see this idea in children's books. So geometry, math, it gets complicated. Let me give you an example. So when you think of geometry, you might think of something like this. When I think of geometry, I think of this, or this, or even this. You're still in a math talk. You're not having some psychedelic hallucinations. See, the thing is, regular geometry is idealized. The plane you work in is completely flat. But once you allow for the possibilities of curvature, it's just one of an infinite number of possible geometries. In fact, there's a whole space of geometries, and this space has its own geometry. A geometry of geometries. See, it's turtles all the way down. It's okay if this is a bit much, so I'll put it to you another way. If doing plane geometry is like jumping around on a bouncy castle, then doing modern geometry is like jumping off a mountain in a wingsuit. So I study the shapes of things, not any particular shape, like this funny ball mathematicians invented, or this elephant, or this octopus banana thing. I study all shapes at once. See, in mathematics, we climb the ladder of abstraction to get theories that are robust, flexible, and powerful. To get applications, you have to climb down this ladder. And this is a job in itself. There are mathematicians who specialize in this. And I'm not one of them. When I do my work, there's no guarantee that there'll be some application at the end, some pot at the end of the rainbow. Most likely, the important applications haven't even been dreamt of yet. Then why do we do it? To be honest, we do it because we can and because we're curious. But over time, even if we're only led by curiosity, we come to recognize that there are some ideas that are so powerful, central, and fundamental that we keep coming back to them. This has historically been a sign that whatever we're discovering will have some useful applications down the line. So curvature is one of these ideas that we keep coming back to and keep finding uses for. So I want to take you back to ancient Greece and introduce you to this guy. So first of all, look at his head. That is some glorious curvature right there. His name was Eratosthenes. That's quite a mouthful, so let's just call him Bob. So Bob heard that in the ancient city of Canberra, there was something incredible, something really amazing. You're not going to believe it. In Canberra, there was this deep, deep well. And on the summer solstice each year, at precisely noon, the sun shone way down directly into this deep, deep well, and you could see the bottom. Now picture that for a second. I think the kids these days might say that it was satisfying. But see, Bob wasn't just looking for some autonomous sensory meridian response. He understood that at exactly this time, the sun was directly above this well in Canberra. But meanwhile, in not Alexandria, but Melbourne, where Bob lived, he had a stick. So, by the way, what is it with men and their sticks? So it turns out my son is really into sticks. And I don't completely get it, but he collects them all the time. You can see he has some in his car seat, and those exact sticks are in that exact configuration right now. And he's always picking up sticks when he goes on walks with my husband. It's real commitment. He's been at this for half his life. Anyway, when the sun was directly over the well in Canberra, in Melbourne, Bob's stick cast a shadow. And from this, Bob saw that the Earth had to be round. He used a diagram, much like this one, to calculate the circumference of the Earth. And he basically got exactly the right answer. And this is in 200 BC. Pretty impressive. Meanwhile, in the 20th century, we've still got our flat earthers. They've got some questions. But you might have some questions too. Like, how did Bob know the distance between Alexandria and Melbourne and Canberra? Well, in ancient Greece, there were these people called bematists. They were professional distance measurers, and they measured distances by pacing. These people were odometers without cars. You could just call them up for their services. They were like the Uber drivers of ancient Greece. So another question you might be asking is, how did he synchronize the time in Syene and Alexandria when they were 800 kilometers apart? They didn't have cell phones, they didn't have watches, and they certainly didn't have standardized time. Could you imagine trying to organize brunch in this world? Like, Cleo's getting her hair done, like, Bob missed the bus, Tom's looking for parking, and Brittany, she doesn't even have an excuse. She's just always late. You have that friend in your life. It's probably me. And then on top of all that, these people can't even agree what time it is. It would be pure bedlam. We're so dependent on our phones these days, but they actually had a very low-tech way of synchronizing time. Noon was when the sun was at the highest point in the sky. It's amazing what you can discover just looking around and noticing things. Without traveling great distances, Bob could comprehend great distances. And this was without Google Maps. So this is a story about how subtle, attentive observations can lead to dramatic discoveries. It's like that time I woke up one morning, walked downstairs and opened the fridge, and found a chunk of cheese with teeth marks in it. I knew my husband had been having midnight snacks again. All right, one more quick story. So in the 1820s, there was this mathematician, Carl Friedrich Gauss. We can just call him Carl. Carl basically invented the modern concept of curvature. He famously showed that to calculate curvature, you just needed some local measurements of lengths and angles. As a proof of concept, he tested this out on the Earth, of course. Carl measured the triangle formed by 3 mountain tops, and also the distances between these mountains over land. The subtle discrepancy between the triangles, one flat and one curved, were enough for him to calculate the curvature of the Earth. Now, the power of this method is that you can calculate curvature by taking local measurements. He calculated the circumference of the Earth without ever leaving Germany. Local observations lead to global understanding. And this is true of any shape, even this octopus banana. So this brings me to what I do. Recently, I've been studying curves in high dimensions. And although the curvature that I deal with is the same spirit as Bob and Carl's, it's a bit more sophisticated. So what's going on is that these curves, at some points, their curvature is very regular. But at other points, the curvature is a bit wonky and anomalous. It turns out that if you know the curvature just at the wonky points, then making some assumptions, you can narrow down the shape to just a handful of possibilities. So we'll look at some pictures. So this is a representation of a curve in high dimensional space. You don't need to think too hard about how to read this diagram. It's just a nice diagram. In the next picture, I've highlighted the bits of wonky curvature. They're here. So these little bits of wonky curvature actually determine the rest of the diagram. Again, you have some local constraints determining global behavior. So here's a more complicated example. And again, here are the little bits of wonky curvature. They're actually determining all the phenomena that you see. Local constraints determining global behavior. Pretty cool, right? So I imagine there could be applications in engineering, in quantum computing, or refrigerator forensics. These applications aren't really ready for prime time yet. So as a mathematician, really I'm just looking for patterns. It's not so different from the ancients looking up at the stars and seeing the constellations. And hopefully after this, the next time you meet a mathematician, you won't feel the need to bend back quite so far, because I'll be watching. Just don't tell HR. Thank you.